Hey, good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, depending on where you are connecting from. My name is Jesus Nava. I'm the Director of Client Training and Education for TradeStation Securities, and I'm excited to be here to talk about one of my favorite subjects, which is strategy automation, and dive deeper into the technology and see what's possible, what is not, what to expect, and some of the things that everyone should be aware of when they're planning on automating a strategy. But before we jump over to the topic of today's presentation, let's get some things out of the way. For example, you guys know that the chat is open. So, welcome everyone. I see that some people shared their location. I see some people coming from around the United States and some people coming from abroad. So, I want to welcome everyone to this class. Thank you for taking time out of your schedules to learn a little bit about TradeStation. Hopefully, I'll have a chance to look over here at the chat and take some questions live so we can make it an interactive session. Let's put it that way. So thank you guys for being here. Let's go through some of the disclosures before I forget. Keep in mind that every symbol and idea that I talk about in this presentation is for educational purposes. It is not a recommendation of TradeStation. Also, active trading is not suitable for everyone, and past historical performance is no guarantee of future results. We're going to take a look at some strategy performance reports, and I want everyone to be aware that what you see in a historical backtest does not guarantee that it'll happen going forward, and we all need to be aware of that. For additional information on these disclosures, everyone sees a link right there in the chat. It is www.tradestation.com/important information. A couple of things that we are doing at You Can Trade. We are running two channels, and when I say we, I mean TradeStation Securities. One of the channels is getting started with TradeStation. Not sure if you've had an opportunity to go there, but we have classes on a weekly basis that talk about the TradeStation platforms and how you can, enter trades, how to monitor trades, and best yet, you can get all your questions answered. So make sure that you check out the Getting Started with TradeStation channel. We also have or run the TradeStation Masterclass. This is a channel where we dive deeper into TradeStation platform technology. We also discuss some strategy elements, some technical analysis, and show you a little bit of programming on easy language. Every class is recorded, and we have multiple sessions where you can ask the experts any questions on the TradeStation platforms, in addition to having special guests every so often. So there's a lot of things going on inside of the masterclass. We meet there on a daily basis live. So make sure that you check out the content and see if it's something that you want to keep, okay? Thank you, Manolo, for sending those links. Those are direct links right into the You Can Trade environment where the TradeStation channels are hosted. So make sure that you check out the content. All right, so let's go ahead and switch over to my TradeStation platform and start talking about strategy development and strategy testing. Although this class is going to focus more on the automation side, I do want to talk a little bit about strategy testing from a conceptual basis. Strategy trading is a way for you to set rules and automatically have those rules followed by the TradeStation platform and show you where the strategy would have generated a trade first historically. That's one of the beautiful things about TradeStation is that you put a strategy on a chart and it shows you where the strategy would have traded every single time it would have traded historically, and you can pull up a report very quickly on your TradeStation. So not to spend a lot of time in setting up a strategy, I am going to walk you through how to do that very quickly here on the TradeStation platform so that we can then talk about the automation part. So here within the TradeStation platform, by the way, I have a chart of Twitter, just as an example. It's a Twitter chart set to daily, and I believe I have a few years of historical data. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a strategy that's very simple. Remember that this class, the intention of this class is not to give you an interesting strategy. It's just to show you the capabilities of TradeStation and the automation side. So I'm just going to choose something simple that we can all understand and we can all follow along. And there's no questions asked about why is it generating a trade here? why isn't not generating a trade over there. So let's go and click on studies and click on add strategies. I'm going to choose, what do you say we use moving averages? Moving averages is something simple. We can all follow a moving average. We all understand them. It's one of the most commonly used analysis technique out there. So why not use it as a strategy, right? So I'm going to use a moving average 2-line strategy. All right, here it is. I'm going to choose 2 of the strategies that are listed here. One is going to do long entries and the other is going to do short entries. So whenever the 2 lines are crossing up and down, that's what's going to trigger the orders in this strategy. Let me put them right here on the chart. I'm not going to change any parameters. I'm going to use them exactly as they come out of the box. And as soon as I put them on the chart, you can already see the signals. They show up on the chart automatically because, as I said at the beginning, you put a strategy on a chart and it automatically finds every single instance where the strategy would have generated a trade. Now, I don't have a visual of the lines. So that's one of the things that you have to also add on to the chart, just so that you can see the lines crossing. It makes you understand the strategy a little bit more, it's a little bit more clear to see why the signals are being generated. So in addition to adding the strategy, I'm going to go here to studies and add the actual study. So the moving average 2 lines, again, I'm using default parameters, and this is what the strategy looks like. Let's go ahead and focus on one trade in particular so that we can understand why it's being generated. You can see the blue line, which is my fast average, and the magenta line, which is my slow average. Whenever the fast crosses below the slow, that is a short signal, and that's exactly what the strategy is doing. Everybody sees that red arrow? That's a short entry on my chart. So it follows precisely the crossover of the 2 moving averages. When the 2 moving averages cross on the other side, for example, here we see the blue crossing over the magenta, that's a bullish signal, and you can see that that's followed by a blue arrow, which is my long entry. And this happens historically throughout the history of this chart. And I think I have about 10 years of historical data. And you saw how quickly it was able to calculate all those entry points. But the best thing in strategy testing is the ability for you to bring up a report. So very quickly, I can go to data, bring up what's called the strategy performance report. And here it is. Again, this is not a strategy development class. It's more about automation. But I just wanted to walk you through the steps of adding a strategy, looking at historical data, and seeing a strategy performance report to see how the strategy did historically. Because in the process of automating a strategy, I want everybody to be comfortable with what they find and comfortable with the strategy that they're going to automate. I don't want anybody to venture into automating a strategy without having the confidence that the strategy will perform at least to a certain standard. It may be just a break-even strategy, it may be a profitable strategy, but it could also very well be a losing strategy, and we all need to be careful. TradeStation provides you with a wonderful platform to develop strategies and automate strategies. First of all, because it has an extensive historical database. So you can tap into any product that you want to back test, pull it up into a chart and do an immediate back test on any strategy. Not only does it have the data, but it also have a powerful strategy performance report that helps you gauge the performance of the strategy. So the tools that you have available on TradeStation are great at allowing you to develop that confidence on the strategy. And best yet, you have the ability to take that strategy and test it against data and make it generate trades in a simulated environment. How cool is that? That you can take a strategy, turn it on, and see how it's trading with real-time data so that you can see it in action. You can see how it behaves, the type of signals that it's generating, so that when you switch it over to your live account where the real money is, then you have a certain confidence because you've seen it work in a simulated environment. and you've tracked it and you've monitored it and you're okay with some of the risks that are involved with trading that strategy. But once you have the confidence, then we can switch over to the live account. But having all those components, the ability to the historical data, having the ability to do a performance report, having the ability to do optimizations and tracking the real time automation of the strategy on a simulated trading server. That is just very valuable. Okay, excellent. Okay, so let's talk about strategy automation and how to set this up for execution. All right. So the strategy itself is not as important in this class as the automation part, because I want everybody to understand what does automation entail. Adding a strategy on a chart just does historical back testing. So don't be afraid to add a strategy to a chart, because what you'll see is historical entries. And of course, I mean, the strategy is added here to this Twitter chart. And as the conditions become true in real time, the strategy will react to it. And you'll see signals show up in real time as the criteria is met, but only on the chart. So don't think that it's going to send orders to execution by just adding the strategy. You do have to go through a series of steps to be able to automate this strategy. But let's suppose that we've done the homework, that we've done the work of working on the strategy and developing it, and we've done our money management, and we have a complete strategy that we're comfortable with, or at least moderately confident on, and we want to automate it. Maybe automate it with a small quantity of shares so that we can see how these orders are generated. And as I said at the very beginning, maybe we just want to automate it using the simulator. Let's see what we can do. So this strategy, and every strategy that is part of the TradeStation platform, has the capability of being automated. I want everybody to understand that TradeStation does not provide complete strategies. When you go to the studies button here and you click on add strategy, what you see in here are strategy components. In fact, you can see the tab here says strategy components. So in no way TradeStation is suggesting that these are complete, but it does give you a great sandbox for you to select and match these strategies up together so that you can see the results. Not only that, but TradeStation has this other programming side, which allows you to create custom strategies, because I think that's where everyone here wants to go. I mean, it's okay that we have strategies based on the MACD and strategies based on the moving averages, but what if I have certain rules that I want to follow that are not in here? Well, TradeStation does give you the capability of programming that strategy and use the exact same technology that we're using for the built-in ones. So all the strategy performance reports, all the optimization technology, and all the automation technology is going to be available for those custom strategies that you create. Okay, so let's go ahead and get this started. I'm going to go to studies, click on edit strategies. And in order for you to automate this particular strategy, let's suppose that we've done the homework. That's how I started and I got like sidetracked. Let's suppose that we are comfortable with the moving average two-line strategy. There's no money management here, so this is not a strategy that I would trade. However, I'm going to show you how to automate it, and we're going to take a look at some real-time order execution on the simulator so you can see how cool this feature is, okay? Let's see. Edgar is suggesting that strategy should have a smaller time increment to avoid a huge loss on the delay. There are some strategies that do require confirmation for the close of the day. But you're right, if you want to have an immediate response to real-time events happening, but that's something you can set up in TradeStation as well. So when we said that there's a close of bar calculation, which technically causes a sort of a delay, we said that that's just the default way that the strategies calculate. If you want that real-time monitoring and execution, then that's something that we can turn on the strategy side as well. So here I'm going to check the box here. In fact, when you go to edit strategies, if you look at the bottom, there's a section here under automation. And there's two check boxes. The first one says generate strategy orders for display in the Trade Manager's Strategy Orders tab. This is a checkbox that is only for display. It says it right there inside that text. Generate strategy orders for display in the Trade Manager's Strategy Orders tab. Let's go ahead and go to the Trade Manager. Before we turn this on, I want you guys to take a look at the Trade Manager and see what it looks like before we automate the strategy. And in this particular example, I'm going to put the Trade Manager down here. So I'm going to go here to Apps and click on Trade Manager, not to be confused with the Trade Manager analysis. So just a note so that you're careful in which you launch. It's just a Trade Manager. And I'm going to put the Trade Manager down here below the chart because I want to see it at the same time that I'm looking at my chart. I can see the response of what I do on my chart. There are two tabs inside of the Trade Manager that are important when you're automating a strategy. And those two tabs are Strategy Orders and Strategy Positions. And when you pull up the Trade Manager and you look at those two tabs, the Strategy Orders and the Strategy Positions, they're always going to be blank. There's no information in there unless you're automating strategies. So you can see that my two tabs, Strategy Orders and Strategy Positions, is blank because I haven't connected my strategy to the Trade Manager. How do I connect them? Again, we go back to that same dialog. I go to Studies, Edit Strategies. Under Automation is the first checkbox that says Generate Strategy Orders for display in the Trade Manager Strategy Orders tab. So the checkbox is pretty much linking my strategy that's on my chart to my Trade Manager. For what purpose? So that I can monitor and track the orders that are being generated by my strategy. So I'm going to leave that checkbox on. I'm going to skip the second one for now, and I'm just going to click OK. And I want everybody to look at the Trade Manager because I now have some information. On strategy orders, I don't have any information yet. Why don't I have any information? Because the strategy is not in a place where it generates orders. It's not in a place or in a bar that it generates orders. Right now, you see how the two moving averages are kind of widening. They're pulling apart from each other. It is when the crossover happens, then the orders are generated. We're going to take a look at another strategy with a little bit of a smaller time frame so we can see the strategy in action. But what I want you guys to see is what the strategy position says. Strategy positions does have some information, and it tells me that the symbol is Twitter. So it recognizes the symbol that I have on the chart. It tells me that I'm on a daily time frame, and the strategy position says short 100. What does this mean? It means that the strategy at the current moment is in a short trade. And if you look here on the front of the chart, you can see that short trade happened about 4 days ago because the blue crossed below the magenta and it generated that short trade. So what this is telling you is that the strategy is short at the moment. Pretty cool, huh? There's no, these two next boxes refer to your real account. And right now they're blank because we haven't created that connection. We're going to get to that in a little moment because these two boxes are important. So we'll explain those in a little moment. But here you can see the strategy price. Strategy price is the price that the short trade happened at, 37.32. The last price is 38.60. So we have a loss of $127 on that current trade. But the cool thing is that you're able to see what the strategy is doing right now. Not only can you check all the historical trades by pulling up the strategy performance report, you can link the strategy to the Trade Manager and see what the strategy is doing at the moment. Pretty cool, huh? Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at the the second checkbox because that's, I think it's important. I'm going to come over here to studies and click on edit strategies. The second checkbox under automation says automate execution. And I just checked it, but let me go ahead and I do not agree. Okay. The second checkbox says automate execution using. Notice that there's an account in there. And the nice thing that it's showing my simulated account with confirmations on. Now, these two boxes are grayed out because I haven't checked, automate execution. But as soon as I check it, the first thing that shows up is a disclosure. Pretty much, alerting you that this is not something that you should take lightly. This is something that is risky, and you should be aware of what you're doing. If you agree, then the two boxes are available for you to select. Now you can click on the button for your account and change the account that you're going to be trading with that strategy. I have a few accounts here, but I'm just going to leave the default because sometimes you may have an account for strategy automation, and then you may have another separate TradeStation account for discretionary trading. That's something that you can do. But if it's just one account that you have, then it'll probably show there by default. Okay, so this is account with confirmations on. I'm going to leave confirmations on for now because I wanted to give you an understanding of what that means. Confirmations on just means that the strategy is still going to wait for you to confirm every single trade, which means that it's not fully automated. It's automated, but as long as you are confirming every single trade, because that's what's going to do. If you leave confirmations on, every time that the strategy is about to generate a trade, you're going to get a pop-up window on your screen asking you, do you want to take this trade or not? I'm going to click OK, leave confirmation on, because I want to point out a couple things that just happened. If you look over here in my trade manager, now my open position says flat and my position match says false. What does that mean? Well, we already know that the strategy is short 100, but if I look into my account, my real account, although this is a simulated account, it's still considered real. It looks at the account and it says, well, you're flat on the simulator. You're not short 100. What does that mean? That my position match is false. I don't have a position match, meaning that my strategy does not match what my real account is, which is pretty cool. So here, the strategy is making a check inside your account to find out if what the strategy is doing is what you have in your account, and in this case is not. Strategy orders is still blank just because the way that the strategy behaves is not going to generate an order. But I am going to add a strategy in here that is going to generate an order, and I'm going to do a stop. So let's do that. Let me go here to studies and add a strategy. I'm going to add something that I think we are all familiar with, which is an ATR stop. I'm going to select two ATR stops, one for the long entries and another for the short entries. Once you make a change to the strategy, you are going to get this dialog. This is pretty much asking you, hey, you made a change to the strategy. Do you want to keep strategy automation on? So as a way of checking that things remain the same. I'm going to say, do you want to disable? No. And for the ATR, I'm going to use 5 ATRs just to account for some of the volatility in the market nowadays. So 5 times the ATR for a stop. Okay. All right. So let me open up my chart a little bit more. I want everybody to see what's in my strategy orders. Notice that it generated an order. The strategy did. What does the order say? Well, first of all, it knows that you're automated. It has confirmation on that this is an order for Twitter. On a daily time frame, the quantity is 100. Quantity filled, quantity left. Does not show any information because let's see why. The strategy status is active. Order status is unsent. And the order's held because of price. What is my stop price? 43.79. Now, of course, 43.79 is far from the current trading price of 38.63. which is okay because we made the stop 5 times the ATR. So of course, the stop is going to be somewhere around here at 43. Does that make sense? So by adding the stop, we're able to monitor that order right here inside of the trade manager. Why is it not visible over here? Well, that's a great question. The reason for that is because we don't have a short position. Remember that the other tab, the strategy positions tab, our position match is false. So there's a couple things we can address that. When you have a position match that is false, meaning that your strategy is not synced up with your account, you can either enter a manual trade that matches the strategy position or force the strategy to adopt what's in your account. Let's talk about the first one, which is doing the trade that matches your position. My strategy is short 100. We can see the entry right here. Let me go over here to my position graph bar. I have a couple of positions there. Let me go ahead and close them. That way we don't get confused. And in the trade bar, I have Twitter. I have 100 shares in there. I'm going to go here into a market order, and I'm going to sell short 100 shares of Twitter at market. I click it, and I get filled. Now, I want you to take a look at a couple things. First of all, I have my position showing in my position graph bar. Next, look at what's happening here inside the trade manager. Now, opening position says short 100, and position match says true. So now we've been able to synchronize the strategy with our live account. How did we do that? We had to put in a manual trade. And now the strategy is able to check it and say, oh, you're short, so the position match is true. On the strategy orders, we still have that stop at 43.79, which is not sent because, again, by default, a lot of the orders that the strategy is going to generate are in my computer. They're not sent to execution unless it feels that it needs to, or unless you tell it to send stops for execution. If I wanted that stop to be sent at 43.79, I have to come over here. Let me show you what I need to do. I have to go to Studies, Edit Strategies. Let me see if I can show you something else before I jump over here. Okay, it's okay. I can show you. Right here in the Properties for All, we came here for a moment at the beginning of the presentation because this is where you put in commissions and you put in slippage and so forth. But I want to concentrate on some of the items that are here in the automation tab because that's what the topic of this presentation is. And I want you to look at what's here at the bottom. There's a checkbox under stop orders. I'm going to put a check here that says send strategy generated stop orders directly to the TradeStation order execution network. You see, that's an option. You can send that stop to the execution network so that it doesn't reside on your computer. Now, having a stop, like I have on this strategy, does not send it to the server for execution. It holds that stop in the computer. And that's why when we looked at this field right here where it says order held, it's held because of the price. The price is 43.79, meaning that if Twitter goes up to 43.79, my TradeStation will send a market order to get out on that short trade because it's a stop market order. And the trigger happens on my computer, and then it sends a market order to get out. But if I check this box, it won't hold it. In fact, there's some additional information right here at the bottom. It says, always hold stop orders on the TradeStation order execution network stop server, even if the execution destination natively supports stop orders. In other words, what it's saying here, there are some exchanges, market makers, ECNs, whatever it could be, that support stop handling. And meaning that they'll hold your stop until it is triggered. Now, what you have here is a checkbox that makes that stop reside inside of the TradeStation order execution network. It doesn't go to the exchange. So we are the ones monitoring your stop, but it's not held at your computer because your computer is going to be exposed to a lot of things that could break the strategy, like power outages, hiccups in the internet, whatever it may be, it may throw the strategy out of sync. So by sending this stop order to the server, which is the TradeStation server, you're kind of protecting yourself to a certain extent from not having a stop. This at least gives you some confidence that TradeStation has your stop with them. So I'm going to click OK. I don't want to disable automation, and I'm going to click OK. Now, take a look at what just happened here. I'm getting a confirmation window. Remember that we turned on strategy automation, but we said leave my confirmations on. This is exactly a confirmation window. We turned on the feature that says place a stop order or send a stop order to execution. And this is what it's saying. Order needs to be placed for Twitter. Buy to cover 100 Twitter at 43.79. Where did this order come from? It came from the strategy. We're using an ATR stop, an ATR trailing stop, and that's the price that it's selected. It's asking us to send that order. And because we have confirmations on, it's not until we confirm it that the order is sent. If I click on the button that says buy to cover Twitter now, then the order is sent. I don't have, let me turn on account orders and positions for this chart. But here it is. Now you have your stop at 43.79. Now this is a strategy generated stop that we were able to send to the server because we had that, confirmations turned on. Let me see if I can take some questions. Another way, one of the things that I showed you just now was the ability to synchronize your strategy with your real account by matching the position. So what I mean by that is that the strategy thought that it was in a short trade. I didn't have any short trades in my account. So what I did is I manually entered a short position in my account so that the strategy could see and say, oh, he's short for sure. I have a match. Let's go ahead and send the stop. And that's exactly what happened. Now, let me go ahead. Oh, I almost poked my eye. Let me go ahead and close this trade. I'm going to close this trade. Okay, it cancels the order. And I'm going to go to strategy positions and notice that we have that false position match again. In the strategy, let me go over here, because if you want to do it the other way, if you really don't want to put in a manual trade, you want the strategy to adopt what you have, then this is what you do. I'm going to come here to studies, edit strategies, go again to properties for all, and go to the automation tab. And we're going to spend some time here. We already talked about the stop orders checkboxes, but what I want to show you is the top two radio buttons, because that will change the way that the strategy reacts to what's happening in your live account. The default one that is selected, which is the very top one, says strategy will fill non-historical orders based on price activity. When it says non-historical orders, what it means is real-time orders. So strategy will fill real-time orders based on price activity. What does that mean? That the strategy has a mind of its own, and it has a way of reacting to orders separately from what's happening in the live account. Meaning that when the strategy sees a price that matches your order, it'll assume a perfect fill. Of course, that sometimes happens in live accounts, but most of the time they don't. Orders are not filled at exactly the price you want. Sometimes there's variability, and we call that slippage. I think somebody here in the chat mentioned slippage. That's exactly what happens. The price continues to move, and the price that you thought you were going to get is not exactly. But the strategy doesn't see that. The strategy fills the orders at exactly the price that is coming through. And sometimes what can happen is that the strategy thinks that you're filled, But in reality, the order is still sitting there. The strategy thinks, oh, you want 100 shares of Twitter at this price? Of course, it just happened. You have 100 shares. But in the real world, yeah, you send the order for execution, 100 shares of Twitter. You are in line behind other traders that probably want shares of Twitter as well. By the time you go to the front of the line and they're about to give you the shares, the price changes and your order may sit there and not get filled at all. I'm not sure if that has happened to you, but it's something very, very common and it happens all the time. So if that were to happen here on the strategy, it would be out of sync because the strategy thinks that you are in a trade, but in reality, your live account never filled you. Does that make sense? So that's what the first radio button means. The strategy is doing its own thing. The second radio button down here, it's interesting because here it says strategy will fill non-historical orders only when the trade manager reports them as filled. So now we're creating a connection here between what the strategy is doing and what is happening in your live account. And what's happening is that the strategy will wait. Let's say that it generates a trade and it says, oh, you want 100 shares of Twitter at this price? Okay, it just happened. I'm going to wait until the trade manager reports it as filled. So this is the strategy talking. The strategy is going to say, well, I'm going to hold off to see what happens to the order. If I'm going to generate the order, it goes to the execution server for execution, of course. And if it gets filled and it reports that you are in a position, then the strategy will say, okay, we are in a position. So it keeps my strategy in sync with my live account. Very interesting, right? But the nice thing about this also, this radio button that I just enabled, is that there is a checkbox that says adopt the real world position for the current account. This is what I wanted to get to. And it's not until you select the second radio button that this checkbox is available. And clearly what it says is that you are adopting whatever position you have in your account, in the real world account, which is pretty cool. Now, I know that in my account, I'm flat. The strategy thinks that I'm short, but I'm not really. But if I put a check here and I click OK, which I'm going to do right now, again, it's asking me if I want to disable the strategy. Since I made a change, I'm going to say no and click OK. Now take a look at what the strategy did, which is pretty cool. The strategy position is flat. So now it doesn't show a short trade. It shows that I'm flat. Why is that? Because it looked at my account. It saw that I didn't have shares of Twitter short, and it just said, well, I'm going to take that position, which if you're flat, I'm flat. And if you look at the signal here, or right here, everybody sees this label that says assume SX. This assume is the label that shows up when you adopt the real world position. This is forcing the strategy to take on whatever position you have in your account. And then it'll start from that point forward, generating trades and giving you what the strategy is supposed to do. Isn't that cool? Pretty cool, huh? Again, just to recap, automation is available when you go to studies and you click on edit strategies. You go edit strategies and you have the automation checkboxes down here. Remember that the real automation happens when you check the second one where you're selecting the account and whether you want confirmations on or off. For example, market orders, like this strategy that I have on, which is a moving average 2-line strategy, it generates market orders. So those market orders are generated from your computer. So the computer monitors the price. When the price is hit, it sends a market order. The same happens with the stop. The stop is held at your computer, and when it reaches the price or the stop price, that's the trigger, and it sends the order to the exchange. We talked about a checkbox that you can turn on so that you can send that stop over to the TradeStation server. But that's the that's the furthest that you can choose your order to go, which is not visible by market makers and ECNs. Now, if you send over a limit order, that's something different because you do want a limit order to reach the market maker because you want to put yourself in line, with other traders that want that same price that you do. And you want to be, closer to the front of the line so that it gives you a better execution. So those are things to consider. Depends on the type of order that you're sending. All right. Let's go ahead and take a look at what else can we do here, because I want you to see this strategy in action. And for that, I'm going to have to change the time frame. Let's go ahead and I'm going to turn this daily chart of Twitter. I'm going to change this to Spider. I'm going to say no. I just changed it to Spider. Notice that I didn't disable automation, but I want you to also understand how quickly I was able to switch the symbol. The strategy recalculates, and now the strategy is working on Spider. Pretty cool, huh? So you can do additional testing on different symbols and different time frames, and it's a process that's rather simple to do. So I'm going to change the daily time frame to a 10-second chart. 10-second. Everybody sees the command line? I am typing literally 10 space second to turn this chart into a 10-second chart. So do I want to disable automation? I'm going to say no. And here we go. Every 10 seconds, we have a candle. We see those two lines approaching. I'm going to, and we're using that assume. So as soon as that blue line crosses below the red, I should get a prompt to enter a trade. Remember that we have confirmations turned on. There we go. Now they've crossed. We have to wait for the close of this candle. It's going to close. And there we go. Sell short Spider now. I'm going to say yes. And then buy to cover. This is my stop. And remember that it's going to give you a confirmation. It says cancel SPY now. Buy to cover. What's happening here is that the time frame is a little bit too quick. And you see now it's in a short trade. Yeah, it's in a short trade. And when it needs to cancel the stop, it's going to give me a confirmation window every single time. But that's where my stop is right here, because it's in a short trade. Now, sometimes if you have a strategy that is actively generating confirmations and is too quick, you may get behind, confirming the orders, and the strategy may just move away and not be valid anymore. So see right here, I have cancel SPY order because it's entering a new one. And now buy Spider now, sell Spider now. So sometimes you see, because I have a 10-second chart, these confirmations are coming through very quickly without allowing me, it's not allowing me enough time to read what the order is. Not good. So if you've created a strategy that does this, is way too quick, it's going to be quicker than what you are confirming those orders. Let me cancel my SPY now and sell SPY now. So I'm still in sync, but let me go over here to the strategy. I'm going to go here to studies, edit strategies, and I can go here and set confirmations off. When you set confirmations off, of course, you're going to get this little disclaimer that's literally warning you, hey, be aware of what you're about to do. This is turning on automation without any confirmations. So the strategy is just going to do whatever it was designed and programmed to do, which is generate trades. If I agree and I click on off, I have a position match here that's false, but eventually, since the strategy is calculating, is going to eventually match. What I just did is I did a Control R, which reloads the strategy, and it makes the strategy recalculate. You can see that my match is true, and the strategy is fully automated. This indication that you see on the top left corner of the chart, that little green box with the red letters, is telling you that the strategy is automated and fully automated. So the coloring tells you if it has confirmations on or off. I believe the SA, which is now in red, those letters were in yellow when the confirmations were turned on. But over here, the strategy is calculating, is doing its thing. Right now, I'm in a short trade, 100 shares short of Spider. I'm going to have my blue line cross over the magenta line in a moment, and that should trigger a long trade. And it should switch my position automatically. Okay, we're about to cross. Look at the candle. The lines have crossed. Let me right click on the chart, copy the window, and I'm going to paste it here. Paste window. All right, so I have my exact same strategy here. And for this one, let's go ahead and set this to Apple. So we can do multiple strategies at the same time. So I have a 10-second chart of Apple, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to edit the strategy, turn automation on with confirmations off, and then click OK. So now you can see that Apple is flat, flat, and true. So let's wait for this to give us a trade. Okay, so now this is working. You can see that I have a position on Apple. I'm long Apple. You can see it up here, but it generated that trade automatically. And yes, Sai, you can see that I have a strategy running on Apple and the same strategy running on Spider. And these are two strategies that are running at the same time. Do we have to keep the workspace open? Yes, you have to keep the workspace open. TradeStation has to maintain connectivity to the server. If you lose connectivity, it may disconnect your strategy automation. And you must have, of course, a supply of power, battery, because if there's a power outage that makes the strategy, shut off, then you're not going to have a running strategy anymore. So is this designed for you to turn it on and walk away and go play golf? No, it's not. It's designed for you to have the flexibility of looking at other markets, be able to still monitor your trading rules and react to those rules at the moment that they happen. But they're not designed for you to, leave it on and take off and do your things, All right, guys. I think I'm going to have to stop here. It's been 60 minutes already. And just to stay true to the time that was reserved for the session, I'm going to have to close the session right now. But I want to use these last couple minutes to remind you to join us in our channels. We have people there that can answer your questions and that can show you how to do things. The Getting Started with TradeStation channel, it's a free channel. It has an open Q&A similar to what we're doing here, and questions are answered. And if you want a higher level and deeper dives into the technology, then the masterclass is the option for everyone. But I want to wish everyone a happy afternoon. And thank you again for taking time out of your schedules to join me today. And I hope to see you in a future class. Everyone, have a wonderful day. Thank you for joining me. Bye-bye.